What's up? Tyler from Plugged On. I'm here with a ranking. This time I'm going to rank all That Remains albums. They have about 9 albums. I'm going to put them all in an order, my order. I would love to hear your order, though, so put your order in the comments below. Also, we are right about to pass 2,200 subscribers, so please spread the word, subscribe, hit that like button. It means everything. So, going to put all of them in an order, from worst to best. In my opinion, All That Remains is very cut and dry. That's just me, though. So, let's get into it. Number 9, I have their 2017 record, Madness. I fucking hate this album. There's just nothing really redeeming about this album to me at all. I tried to, when we do these, we listen to every record from the band, start to finish. And then we put them in an order, we hash it out most of the time. I can't bring myself to listen to this thing in its entirety at all. Safe House is, them trying to be heavier again. Madness does it have a hook to it? Sure. I think it's still, it feels just very uninspired to me. But then, getting back to Safe House, it just doesn't feel right. It does, the heaviness, just something about the production of this album is just so flat and just not there at all. And then there's tracks like If I'm Honest, Louder, Trust and Believe. There's just nothing I can do. There's some stinkers on this album to me. Next up, I have their 2015 album, The Order of Things. This time period was, All That Remains doing a little bit more radio-friendly stuff, really trying some different things to appeal to a larger crowd. And there's nothing wrong with that to me. I just think it didn't land all the way. The Order of Things has some alright songs on it. This Probably Won't End Well is the biggest song off of this album, and it's not a bad song. It has some neat riffage. The chorus isn't bad. Phil sounds fine on it. For You, I think, is All That Remains doing a slower ballad-like song really well. That song is fucking fantastic to me. But then the rest of it, I think, is just kind of lame. True Cult Metal, Victory Lap, The Greatest Generation, Divide. Divide just is weak. When you get to the verse of that song, it's like, no, it just doesn't sound right. Phil doesn't sound right. There is some interesting things on here, like Gene Sanders, their bassist at the time, did a lot more singing, like background singing, everything on here. I thought that's cool. I wish they would have done more of that, because she was in the band for about 4 records, so I wish they would have used her a little bit more, So that's one thing about this album that is neat, but overall, once again, I think this one's just hard to get through, in my opinion. So next up, I think these next 2 honestly could go back and forth. I don't really care where they land, but I'm going to put at number 7, A War You Cannot Win from 2012. It's got some songs on it, and this is where All That Remains really had a shift. They had a lot of success with Overcome and For We Are Many, and they obviously had a very huge radio hit on this album with What If I Was Nothing. That's one of the most popular songs. People dig that song. It's not my thing. I would rather listen to, say, For You off The Order of Things, or some of the other slower songs that they have. But I can see where the hook is. It's got a catchiness to it. But the thing is that there's still some riffs on here that I can get down on. Down Through the Ages is a fine song. You Can't Feel My Shadow isn't bad. The title track is okay. There's some okay songs on here, but as a whole, especially at the time when this album came out, it was very, very underwhelming, because you have what I believe, which it's a little bit spoilers, but I feel most people agree the peak of this band was This Darkened Heart and Fall of Ideals. Overcome is, was fine to me. For We Are Many is fine, but then this one's just a little bit of a dip. And then I just felt like they continued on that dip as they tried to, adapt to this sound. But it's not, like I said, it's not that they're different. It's just, it just didn't land. The songwriting isn't there. It's either like Phil sounds really awkward or this guitar riff has no punch to it. It's just stuff like that where I feel like over these 3 records, A War You Cannot Win, The Order of Things, and Madness just did not land. That's my opinion. So then number 6, and like I said, I think you could really go back and forth on any of these. I have their debut album, Behind Silence and Solitude from 2002. This is back when, they were fucking straight up metalcore, and it was all about the breakdowns and the riffs. I don't think this is a bad album. To me, it's a little kind of forgettable, although when you're listening to it, there's some fucking banging riffs on there. From These Wounds has cool stuff. Clarity, Erase, the title track, like there's some incredible metalcore riffs on there that I think it makes this album kind of interesting to listen to, but then at the same time the production just isn't there, and I like that kind of older early 2000s metalcore sound. It just, something about the production just does not land with me on this one, and then Phil's vocals just don't sound the greatest on this one, and that's just a production thing, and overall like the songwriting just doesn't pop as much. So honestly, I could go back and forth on them. The reason why I have them why I have this album and A War You Cannot Win kind of the same spot is just because I think there is a lot of really cool riffs on here. But I will say, the soloing on this album fucking blows. And Ollie Herbert got so much better as time went on. There's some solos on here that made me just go, just not ideal. Not ideal at all. Alright, so next up, I have their new album, Victim of a New Disease. I'm not going to say too much about this album because I just reviewed it a few weeks ago. Go check that out if you want more of my thoughts on that one. But I think this is more of a return to form for All That Remains. There's some really heavy songs on here. There's some solid aggressiveness. But then Phil's clean singing I think sounds great. The guitar riffs land really well. Like I said, with say Safe House off of Madness, I felt like just the production just was so thin, just wasn't there. But you take Wasteland, for example, off of this album, yeah, there's some more punch to it that I feel All That Remains has lacked over the last few albums. And there's just some really catchy songs in here. Everything's Wrong is good. Fuck Love is another solid one. Alone in the Darkness is a fantastic track, a slower track that I think is good. Just Tell Me Something, I can see that being that What If I Was Nothing, but for this album, that has Danny Worsnop from Asking Alexandria on it. Not a bad song, not something I think I'd put on by All That Remains all the time, but it has a catchiness to it. Overall, solid album. It's a shame that this is Ollie Herbert's last album because it really went out, in my opinion, on a high note, a more return to form for All That Remains. So next up what are we at number 4? This is where I think it's just pretty simple from here on out, but that's just my opinion, of course. I have 2010's For We Are Many. I think this album is mighty fine, and I still remember picking this up the day it came out. Just kind of being excited for it. And there's some solid songs on here. I fucking love the title track. I think it has one of my favorite All That Remains riffs on it. That song is really good. It always gets me going when that one happens. The Last Time's probably the bigger song off of here. That has a very catchy chorus from Phil Labonte on vocals that I personally love. I think it's a solid song. I remember listening to it at the time of like, I don't know how I feel about this because this is more, instead of screaming, like the emphasis is on Phil singing, but I'm like, man, the hook is there, and it grew on me over time to the point where I like it. Some of the People All the Time is by far the heaviest song on here. Gets pretty crunchy down at the end. Won't Go Quietly, I think, is a fine song. Dead Wrong, Faithless. There's the Waiting Ones. There's some good stuff on here. I just think compared to earlier All That Remains album and some of the others coming up on this list, they just don't hold up as well. But going back and listening to this a few weeks ago for the first time in a long time, I was pleasantly surprised of like, yeah, I still find this album to be alright. Next up, I have 2008's Overcome. So this is the album that I think really took All That Remains to the next level in terms of popularity. I mean, we'll get to it, but the Fall of Ideals really solidified them, but then Overcome took them to the next level. This has the biggest All That Remains song in hit they've ever had, and that's 2 Weeks. I thought it was so interesting, being into All That Remains at the time and hearing 2 Weeks on the radio. It's like, this is kind of weird, but good for them, I love this album. I never understood why. I can see it to a degree, but I never understood why everybody just shits all over this album when, around the time when this came out, because I think it has some great songs on it. Yes, there's less screaming and more singing from Phil Labonte, but I think it's fucking good. And the riffs are there, the solos are there, the energy is there. Forever in Your Hands, I think, is fucking fantastic. Before the Damned is good. Chiron is fucking sweet. Do Not Obey, I think, is one of the better All That Remains songs. A deep cut, in my opinion, if you want to say it's that. That's the song to me. The title track's really good. Believe in Nothing, the Nevermore cover's fantastic. Fucking love this song. Days Without is so good. There's some really amazing songs on here to me, and like I said, it is a different approach, but I think it has a great blend of the screaming and the singing, and it obviously was a more appealing album for everybody, and I think it has cool album art as well. Next up, I have their second record, 2004's This Darkened Heart. This Darkened Heart is good, and like I said, going back and listening to this one, I was like, man, I forgot how fucking fantastic a lot of these songs are. There's some great melodies on here, some punchy riffs, the production's a lot better, Phil's vocals are so much better, and it has that early 2000s metalcore production that I love, listening to like Alive or Just Breathing by Killswitch Engage or The Oncoming Storm by Unearthed. Like, I love that sound, and this nails it too. Man, there's some songs on here that I just wish All That Remains would play more and more. The Deepest Gray, Vicious Betrayal, Focus Shall Not Fail is so heavy. Regret Not, Tattered on My Sleeve. Fuck, dude. I love everything about this album, and I think from a songwriting standpoint, it is really good. And for metalcore, you almost can't get better than this, but I think they do with just one album, which everybody knows what it is. 2006 is The Fall of Ideals. To me, this is All That Remains at their best. I like their new album. I don't think they will ever get close to this ever again. It's like, I don't know, Metallica with Master of Puppets. Like, they're just, or And Justice for All or something. They're not going to get up there. Hardwired to Self-Destruct is a fucking great record, but it just doesn't have that like Master of Puppets or And Justice for All does. I feel the same way about All That Remains. Like, it's just hard for me to think that they're ever going to get back to this level. I just feel everything lined up on this album. Everybody was firing on all cylinders. This is Phil Labonte's, more aggressive screaming vocal at its best. This is my favorite All That Remains production because it's not overly produced, but it's not, say Behind Silence and Solitude or This Darkened Heart. Like, it's in that very happy medium to me. The riffs are just some of the best that this band has ever had. Ollie's solos, fucking killer. The songwriting, everything, like I said, everything lines up. Right away with This Calling, one of their most popular songs, and for good reason. I mean, this is the song that I always point to when I go, I want to listen to All That Remains. It's This Calling that I always put on first. That chorus is beautiful. The opening, just throw your horns up in the air, bang your head, get in the fucking circle pit, just really gets everybody going. Not Alone is a fantastic one. Whispers I Hear You is so fucking incredible. The melody in that just kind of the atmosphere that they have is great in that chorus. The Weak Willed is fucking heavy as shit. I love that song. And Phil Labonte gets so just brutal on vocals. 6 is probably one of the more popular All That Remains songs as well. You know, I learned of this band from Guitar Hero and Rock Band, I'm not going to lie. And 6 is a fucking great song. Every time that those verses, you know, get going, man, that has some fucking groove to it. You know, and Phil's vocals are just so catchy over top of that. The Air That I Breathe, Empty Inside are fantastic songs. Every song on here is good, but it's just, to me, this is one of the crown jewels of the metalcore genre, of the, you know, melodic metalcore genre, if you want to call it that too. It has everything that I love about this genre, and if, you know, you make a top 5 or 10 albums in metalcore, this absolutely has to be on it, and I think you're fucking crazy if it's not. That's my opinion. That's my ranking of All That Remains and all of their albums. Let me know your ranking. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video. See ya.